everybody. Scott Bowden and Brian Last right along ringside and ready to go with another big week of the KFR podcast. And friends, Memphians, countrymen, and co-host, lend me your ears, your cauliflower ears. On this week's episode, my co-host, Howard Baum, and I will be discussing the Wild and Woolly affair, or in Howard's case, Woolly Mammoth, that was the 2019 CAC reunion in Las Vegas.
That's right, Scott. Today, our KFR listeners will hear all about what was quite possibly the most riveting dialogue since the Gettysburg Address. The acceptance speech delivered by CAC honoree Dr. D, David Schultz. Plus, we'll get the scoop on your encounter at the hotel bar with the King and dear friend of the show, Jim Ross, as well as your conversation with J.J. Dillion and his memories of working Memphis and news of his upcoming appearance on KFR.
Memphis memories. That's what this show is all about. So let's rock this thing like Ricky and Robert and...
Double drop kick!
Oh, wait. You're stealing my line now, dude?
Well, maybe just this one time.
Okay, but no hi-hats! No hi-hats for you, Last.
Okay. Jeez. No hi-hats, I got it. What about lime green parachute pants and a colorful bandana tied around my wrist and another one around my calves?
You got matching ones for me? Huh? Huh?
Yes, I have a matching lime green parachute pant.
All right. Rock on, man. Rock on. Yeah, you rock, and we'll be ready to roll with this week's special CAC edition of the KFR podcast right after this.
Double for oil.
Is anybody trying to intimidate anybody? I mean, out there now, is there somebody that's trying to intimidate somebody like Jerry Lawler? See, we don't have to come out here yelling and screaming or anything, because I am the Southern heavyweight champion of the world, Lance Russell. You understand,
I know you got it. I know.
People think that we're crazy, but we're not crazy, man, because we don't have to intimidate anybody like Lawler and Brody are trying to do. You know what happens when Dr. Death and the Macho Man tag team and go against Brody and Lawler? Oh, yeah. They're going to hear about it all over the world when Dr. D and the Macho Man do the thing on you guys, yeah.
Hey, Brody,
First thing I got to say is this, Lawler. I don't have to impress nobody because you just impressed yourself by coming out here making a complete fool out of yourself, telling everybody how you followed my career about the people that I have beat. And you know the people I have beat. And you come out here and tell people that you had to pay more money to get Bruiser Brody. That's right. Because I found out something about you, Lawler. Nobody wants to be your tag team partner because you've got a disease, boy. I've checked on you. You have a disease and they call it AIDS. I have checked on it. Nobody wants that to do with you. And I got another thing to tell you. You're right. I hit Bruiser Brody. I hit him with a stick. But you know why? He caught me holding his woman in my arms. Yeah, that's what he did. And he jumped me, and I taught him a lesson. Now, Lawler, I want to tell you something about your woman, about your wife and your girlfriend. The doctor might have had his hands all over her. Who knows? I don't have to impress nobody, big boy. If I had to pull this man off of you, baby, last Monday night, he would have killed you. He would have took your life right there, big boy. I had your life in these hands, Jerry Lawler. Like the great film of God's up above, baby. I could have took your life just like that. It could be all over.
We're going to hear about this match all over the world, Lance Russell.
I can't believe it.
Welcome back to Kentucky Fried Wrestling, the only Memphis wrestling podcast that provides a perspective that's not only original, but somehow also extra crispy. And I am fresh back from the Cauliflower Alley Club reunion in Las Vegas, where I got to meet several 605ers for the first time, including Jace Nacarado, Jason Rudy, Dale Spear, Vandal Drummond, Carmine Desperito, and Mark Baldry. And contrary to popular belief that we may have spent a day together frolicking on Jerry Jarrett's estate in Speedos and or tight jeans, engaging in typical buddy bonding moments and hijinks, cannonballs into the pool, shirtless carriage rides, and afternoons lying around the elder Double J's barn, seductively chewing on some hay and relaxing in hot tubs out afterward, wearing hi-hats, no less. No, this is the first time I'd ever actually met my new KFR co-host. But nonetheless, let's hear it for the boy. Let's give the boy a hand. One half of the Jew generation, Howard Baum. Howard, are you fully recovered from
Hey. It's an honor. It's an honor. I guess that was the first official announcement that I am here. So everyone, as I told Jim Valley, who publicly came out and said that, literally, KFR is my favorite podcast. So I went up to him and said, well, I hope I don't ruin your favorite show. And he says, no. He assured me that, no, you're barely tolerable yourself, so it should be okay. No, but he put me over. Yeah. Jim Valley's a great guy, and what a great time we had out there, I must say. It was, Scott has the whole outline of things that we want to discuss, but I want to tell you people, we really had a great time out there.
No, it was cool, and even more so than seeing some of the wrestlers and chatting with them a bit. I mean, it was really just cool to meet the guys who I just seen posting on the Mothership fan page, and guys who you could tell just are loyal fans of the show, except for Vandal Drummond, who I asked him a little bit about the show. I asked him a little bit about the show, and I said, what's it? So what are your thoughts on the show? Because I'm always looking, to hear. And he's been around a long time, and I just, any way I can improve upon the show. And he goes, "I'll listen to it and let you know."
That's the brotherhood of the Arcadian Vanguard. There's no bond like it in the business, as you well know.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And I enjoyed the camaraderie myself, I have to say, which is like way out of character for me because I usually can't stand people. But I gotta say, all my buddies, my crew was Carmine DeSpirito, Dale Spears, you say, the great Jace Nacarado, my right-hand man, the only man who shows up when and where he says he's going to. Fredo Esparza, Vandal, a tremendous amount. I'm trying to think of that's like the basic crew, I guess. I'm sure I'm leaving people out, but we just had a ball. It was Chinese food and good local produce, etc., etc.
Yes,
Vegas really has it down with science, I have to say.
Are you talking about those juicy melons you got a hold of on your final night?
Well, there was the melon section, there was the flour section, there was a lot going on.
Yes.
If you folks want to know the real scoop, we're cooking up a big Patreon for you. That I don't.
Oh, wait a minute.
Scott and I already realized that the best stuff isn't even repeatable on the air, so we're just gonna be like, once we're both dead, we're gonna release a Patreon, and then our heirs can benefit from it. He didn't do anything; it was all me. Scott's a happily married man.
Yes,
and I still have a life. So.
Yes, so let's keep it that way. But
Scott didn't do anything, I swear. It's no veiled nothing. I'm the only one.
But seriously, this chick had.
But back to wrestling, folks.
This chick had bigger tits than Abdullah the Butcher. I mean,
that was my line. You son of a bitch. This guy. Oh, that's how this thing is gonna go. I see how this is.
Oh, but it's funny, and I asked a few guys, even Jim Valley, who I think he wants to run the KFR fan club. It was a pleasure meeting a true Renaissance man with excellent taste. Clearly, if KFR is his favorite podcast, but it was cool. But almost everybody said, yeah, and then they got kind of serious and they were like, I just wish it came out more, because it sucks when you think it's coming out and then it doesn't come out for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Will it come out? Will it? And I have assured people that I've started to trim back my schedule. I've always worked a full-time job and had side gigs where I do some PR for clients on the side. I am scaling back that and bringing Howard aboard to help me with some content and have somebody. You're going to be my my Dave Brown a little bit, which I hope that Brian last hears this and is insanely jealous. But
I've never had a full-time job, so I have the time to make it top of the pops.
Yeah, a year from now you'll probably take over the show.
Oh,
Oh God. Anyway, so and
we're gonna rebrand it the Howard and Abdullah the Butcher Hour.
It was also cool seeing even Scott Teal, who I've read most of his books and swapped emails before, and it was cool to meet him, and it was funny because I walk and I'm looking at, he's talking to somebody else, and there are stacks of his books around, and I noticed there are a few copies of Downtown Bruno's book there, and finally Scott turns to me and I said, excuse me, it was my understanding that Downtown Bruno is going to be here later today for a couple hours signing copies of his book. And Scott Teal goes, I didn't think anybody would want that. I didn't. I go, are you serious? That's the only reason I came. And he's like, I don't know what to say. And then he looks, and he's going to address me by my name. So he looks at my badge. He goes, "Oh, Scott." It was almost like disappointed Lance Russell. It's like, "Oh, get out of here with your smart stuff."
Ever the River. That's our Scott.
Yeah.
He just goes around spreading joy. You should see this guy in action. It's like a one-man UNICEF tour. But Scott Teal, I want to say, like I say, Scott Teal, Tom Burke, those guys have to be vampires because they were around in full production mode when I was like 8 years old, and they still look the same. They still look amazing. Scott is a great guy, a great champion for the business, has done so much behind the scenes for various promotions and fan endeavors over the years, and truly cares about the CAC. And I have to say, I think the CAC is making a real comeback under guys like Scott. I got to know Brian Blair a little for the first time ever, and he's a really cool guy.
Yeah,
and,
he was impressive. He was pretty impressive, I have to say, as the kind of master of ceremony there.
I think kind of it's like a transition period, but I have to say, barring the absence of all the classic wrestlers, it's definitely more fun than ever. Somehow, much to my amazement.
And it really lived up to the billing for me as far as being able to just walk up to some of the stars who, nobody seemed to mind. Everyone seemed very gracious. I had several impromptu conversations that were memorable. I actually lined up in a future appearance by J.J. Dillion, who had a brief but great run in Memphis. And it's great to talk to these guys about their time in Memphis, because it may not have been long. It may have been a very small part of their career, but everyone seems to really enjoy it, and I'm sure that JJ was paid pretty well because he was one of Eddie Graham's boys and that whole deal. But it was just tremendous that whole feud where, Dillion not only introduced Kamala and was the key to getting that whole thing over. And I told him that. I said, that interview where you introducing him, it would not have worked if Jimmy Hart had done it, because Jimmy Hart's in Memphis every single week. We know he's not, we know he's not going on safari, but Dillion with the tuxedo, he's very distinguished. It's plausible, at least to my 11-year-old ears when I heard him say that he was on safari, and I guess looking back, it's probably one of the most racist gimmicks of all time. But hey, and he said, I saw this incredible jungle savage, and I'm bringing him over here. And I remember my friends said we were not only worried about Lawler losing the Southern Heavyweight title, we were worried about him being hospitalized. Because, we totally bought into the exotic locale of Jarrett's aforementioned backyard, being the back reaches of Africa, I suppose. And,
it's so lucky for Jarrett that he had this nondescript land out there, because if there was just one structure that you could identify in every video, you could see that it's like everyone from Kamala to the New Generation to Bill Dundee doing his three-wheelers, to Jeff Jarrett, to everybody frolicking in the same damn backyard. Yeah. But over the years, that backyard was the outbacks of Australia and the wilds of Africa and everything in between.
And that one with Bill Dundee, where he's talking about making his comeback, he's got his arm in a sling. I think it looked like the first time Bill Dundee had ever been on a horse. I know. I mean, and not only that, but his one arm is in a sling, and it looks like he's like, oh shit.
Yeah. The ATV one was a lot more convincing for Dundee.
Yeah, exactly.
He looks a lot more at home on that thing zipping around. I think I'd be the same way too, no less, mind you.
But I am really jealous though of Mark Batten and Johnny Wilhoit. They seemed like they had,
the Jew generation, as I call them.
They seemed to have quite the time on his estate that day.
Where was Brad Batten during all this when Bart was off cavorting with John Wilhoit?
I don't know, but he was probably pretty upset that he wasn't invited.
Yeah, really. They could have made a 3-man Freebird team out of it. Would have been negative 35 on the charisma scale.
Who was and that look that was going around for a while, like the Fabs look with the blonde hair, where the kind of the bleach blonde hair, where they and the dark beard.
Yeah.
And Batten, and then Jerry Jarrett walks out on TV one day, and suddenly he's doing it. It's like everybody's like kind of copping the Fabs gimmick.
Subliminally, they gave the whole territory the rub. Everybody wanted to be Stan and Steve,
and several young ladies the rub as well.
Uh-huh.
There you go. And I asked Dillion. I said, so what did you think when they asked you to finally come in? And he said, it was crazy because originally Lawler, was working in Florida, and I wanted to do a deal where I called myself King James. I asked his permission because he had been coming in, because I believe Dory was booking, and I think Dory was really high on Lawler. And I've always said that Florida got more mileage out of the empty arena match than Memphis did, I think.
In a way, oddly, yeah.
Although Lawler was stuck with some weird, he was in some weird tag matches with the Funks, like with partners like Mike Graham, Charlie Cook, guys like Don Diamond,
Right. I mean, Dory was the booker, so that's what he wanted to book, and I guess the main events on those shows were Dusty was champion at the time. So he was in the main event working the Assassin during this one period that I can think of. And Dory, but then again, the match I saw was Dory and the Assassin against Funk and Cook. But yeah, I mean, that was, I hate to say it, but that was kind of the level that Lawler was at. And I hate to say it because that's the level that our semi-main eventers were at, which was Cook and Mike Graham and guys like that, which were not that exciting, but that's what we had at the time. Those were our semi-main event guys.
He did have there was a great card, and actually I have the Lawler match on my YouTube channel. It's a Tate Fist match with Lawler and Funk, and man, those punches. Every time, like I post that clip or remind people that it's there, everyone's just like going, "Oh man, the punches! They're just it's just unreal." Yeah. I mean, it's probably second only to the Loser Leave Town match between Lawler and Dundee, where they're really laying it in stiff, and how they did that match 4 times and I think 5 days, I'll never know, because I think all of them followed kind of the same formula. They were all really stiff and really brutal because back then they were just determined to get the fans their money's worth for a big blow off like that.
Well, down here after they showed the empty arena match, they were booked all week, and at the Miami Beach Convention Center I saw one of the best matches. And Terry went above and beyond with the Terry Funk routine. He went under the ring before this is commonplace, and back then nothing was planted. It's like whatever happened to be under the ring. So it was this giant bucket of nuts and bolts that they used for the turnbuckles and stuff. And he just threw this big construction-sized bucket into the ring with and now everything is everywhere. There's every kind of weapon imaginable. And he's not done. He's doing that thing where he goes outside and shakes the guardrail at the fans like, "Come on, you son of a bitch!" Just going nuts. Lawler follows him out. Funk ends up somehow with his pants, with his whole butt exposed in the 4th row on the floor. Whole place was going nuts. He was right in front of me with his butt hanging out. And I'm thinking to myself, does he know his whole butt is hanging out? I'm thinking, of course he knows his whole butt is hanging out. It's Terry Funk. But it was one of the wildest Terry Funk style brawls. The best Jerry Lawler match I ever saw in Florida. That was 81 too. So it was like, we did get some good mileage out of that. I thought it was a great angle. I thought it showed so much hatred. But, just now I thought of this. Maybe the reason that it didn't work is because Lawler killed the heel in the angle.
Yeah, but
like he already, it was like a mythological thing. Like he poked him right in the eye. That's not a burial of somebody. Funk is crying for his mama at the end, famously.
Well,
what? It should have been Lawler gets injured, and now he's got to come back, and then he takes Funk's eye, like they did with Dusty.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and this is, I think it had something to do with the timing, because Lawler had just come back from the broken leg, and they were putting him over so strong.
Right.
And I think the idea was that, after being out with a broken leg, they didn't want to do an injury angle, because to really make that work, he would have to be out for a week or two. And I don't think they wanted to do that. And I think what they were going for was the fact, okay, he's done this to Funk. Funk believes that the best villains are always the ones who believe that they're in the right. And Funk strongly believed, and really it is sort of true. Lawler did have the home mat advantage, right? But I always thought it was really funny that Funk also included, not only the fans are on his side, the announcers are on, the police are on his side, which really points to a greater conspiracy.
Yeah, and what was the best was the beginning when Funk hands Lance the note to announce the match, and he's like, Jerry, Terry Funk gave me a note out here, and then Lawler has to go through the acting job of pretending like he's looking at it for the first time, and he has that little smirk on his face, and Lance is waiting for his reaction. He's like, I see, okay. He goes, well, read it, Lance, and then Lance announces like what's going on, and that's the deal. But
no. Hang on a second. You're actually missing like a really great moment, because
I knew that was inevitable. Folks, I want to tell you right at the top, I'm not the greatest detail man. I would be considered more the color portion of the team. I just want you guys to know that right off the bat. I'm not a stat man, a historian, if you will. So thank you.
This is why I have you here, though, to show everyone how smart I am.
Right, exactly. I see right through you, man. I know what's going on.
No. It's like one of those little subtle moments, that first of all, Funk walks off and he almost, he's holding up the envelope the entire time with the time and a place where only you and I will be there, and then he forgets to hand it to Lance. And he comes back in. Lance is wrapping it up. He goes, former NWA World Champion Terry Funk. And then he goes, take it to him. And shoves it.
That's great. That's classic Funk to forget the whole thing.
And then when they go there, and Lawler's already standing there, because Lawler's just squashed. There's that famous clip that was used in some of Lawler's videos where he starts a match with a jabroni. I think it was I can't think of the guy's name now, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. But he backs Lawler up against and gets a shot in, and Lawler shakes it off and kind of laughs. He's like, okay. And the entire time, Lawler's chewing gum.
Yeah.
And so he just nails the guy with one punch, knocks him out, and then does another little fist drop, not from the ropes, but just straight down with a fist, smirks at the camera. It gets the easy 1, 2, 3, and he's wearing almost like solid pink. It was like blue.
Yeah, I know that one. I totally know that one. Yeah,
you got to be a real man.
That was like his Burt Reynolds phase, where he would just be like, I'm the man. What about it? Pin the guy. That was the quintessential Lawler thing. Pin the guy after an easy pin, and then just like smile into the camera. What do you expect?
Yeah, total
chewing gum.
That's just vintage Lawler. But so he's just standing there, and Lance goes, well, and here's the envelope, Jerry. And Lawler takes it. And he goes, oh, Lawler goes, you've already opened it. And Lance goes, oh, I had a peek, Lawler goes, like, how about this guy? And then he walks off, and then he does that. You and I talked about the Lawler walk, where it's just it's not over the top. It's just that stride, that just cocky,
he's pleased with himself. Like, yep, nailed it.
And then Lance is like going, I just want a reaction. No. And it set it up beautifully because it was different than, why did Lawler just walk off? It's so odd, the whole thing. And it's a match that we're not going to get to, nobody's going to have to pay to see it live. Therefore it came off real. And I guess they were banking on Lawler hurting Funk and him being so crazy and where Lawler's would be in danger. Like Funk might find him anywhere. And he showed up at the studio and he had that patch over his eye and he's tearing up the studio looking for Lawler, who very well could have been in Florida that day. Who knows?
No, see, okay, if they wanted to the whole angle is backwards because that would have been the heel doesn't usually come out looking for revenge, but it led to what has to be the wildest, craziest Terry Funk interview of all time. When he came out during the Frankie the Thumper era, and he was bulkier during that era too, when he was getting ready for, that wasn't even the Frankie the Thumper. What am I talking about? But he was really thick during that era, and he was really tough looking. And he had that patch on his eye, and he came out maybe 1 or 2 weeks in a row going completely nuts on Lance. That was the period where he is that the period where he chased Jim Cornette around and ripped his pants off on TV?
No, that's when he came back.
Oh, that's when he was turning. That's when he was, that's when he was turning. Yeah. Those were the two wildest interviews I ever saw, where he came out there after the eye injury and when he ripped Cornette's pants off, because now he's a face, but he's just as crazy as I've ever seen him. But we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, and both those promos start out tremendously. The challenge, he starts off and he goes, first of all, I'd like to say that Jerry Lawler is the son of a jackass. He's a lover of
all serious. He's quoting a fact.
Yeah,
it's an actual fact.
Yeah, he's a lover of chickens, which I've never heard that expression ever. And my friends and I, for years afterward, whenever we were tearing somebody down, I'm like, oh, dude, that guy is the son of a jackass. He is a lover of chickens. So these lines that you would hear in the interviews. I mean, guys, when we were playing sports as kids, we would taunt one another. We would do the Fargo strut, if we scored a goal in soccer, or hit a home run. I did this one time. I'm not kidding you. I hit a home run, and I was crossing the plate, and I strutted over the plate, and my dad blew a gasket. Oh it's don't ever do that again. I'm sitting there playing.
You ended up not getting murdered by now. It's really a testament.
I know.
People around you. It's quite something. I thought I was bad, man. I met my match. Mr. Zinger over here. Mr. Let me endear myself to everybody. I thought I was something. We're going to get into it later, folks. We have a segment for you later, folks. Hang on to your hats.
Yeah, there was one guy who, even in Vegas, I guess I mispronounced your name, but it could have been, it could have been the booze or the edibles or whatever. And he corrected me, and I go, hey, it doesn't fucking matter what his name is. I'm the star of the show. And he looked, and I was totally kidding, of course. And although that is true. But he looked at me like I was insane.
I'll be nice for a few weeks, then I'll let my real...
Yeah, he looked at me like I was totally insane, which maybe I am. I don't know.
Nah, I've given up on the whole Baum thing. I've given up. People, it's Baum. There is no Baum. It doesn't exist in the world. I asked a German stripper about it. I said, my real name is Peachtree. How do you say that in German? Fürsicht Baum. Thank you. Right from the Fuhrer's lips to mine. So... Thank you.
Wait a minute. What if I talk to Brian Blair and get permission for you to use Killer B?
I didn't like it on him. I'm not going to take it for myself. My God, I can come up with something better than that. The sad part is, Baum lends itself to so much wordplay. It would be so good for marketing. H-Bomb Studios dropped a bomb on me. And so I accept it. I accept it like Levy or whatever, but there's no such thing as Baum, people, unless you're rubbing some ointment on your burn.
Oh, so
that's my Baum.
Wait a minute, you woke up with a burn?
Never mind.
Moving on. So we're walking into the back into the hotel, like we had a light lunch. I had this was on my birthday, and so I figured we were in for much debauchery later on that day. So I was like, let's eat something healthy. Let's eat something light. So I opted for the fried chicken sandwich with a waffle bun.
Right.
Yeah.
It's your go-to keto meal, the fried waffle sandwich. What?
Yeah. then I guzzled some syrup. And then closed the evening at 3:30 in the morning, eating noodles with you and Vandal Drummond. And I've never been so hungry in my life or disorientated. And at one point, I pick up what I think is the tea, and it's the soy sauce. And I take like a big swig of it. And you go, that's the soy sauce, right? I go, yeah, I know. It's delicious.
And then he put the tea all over his food, and they kicked us out.
Yeah. And then of course I had to take a completely no salad. I was like, oh gosh, the soy sauce. This is some of the best soy sauce I've ever drank in my entire life. And so I had to have another until I drained the entire bottle of soy sauce. So
we have our fun.
I'm not your soy boy though.
We do have our fun.
Just to clear that up. But anyway, so we're walking in from there, and I have my Super King t-shirt on that's available at MemphisWrestlingTees.com if you want to help support this fine program. And here's the deal. Like I produce the shirts that sort of like that I want, and there might be only 5 other people on the planet who want a Super King shirt. I tried to give you one, you wouldn't even take it. But I'm wearing it.
It's not true. That's not true.
Lawler. We see Lawler and JR at the bar at TGI Fridays in the hotel.
Well, wait, we have to announce the name of the segment, right? You give the proper name of the segment that you came up with.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking that
because both Scott and I had reunions with top stars in our areas during this trip, and we found out whether there was some friction between the two of us or not. And it's a new segment that Scott has named, and it's called
The Heat Lamp.
Thank you.
Yes, wow.
Everyone poo-poos my segment name, so I wanna put yours out there for the world to hear. Okay, the Heat Lamp. This is called the Heat Lamp, people. And no consultation with me, no heads up. Just it's called the Heat Lamp. So okay.
There was a dramatic beat there. You'll notice. See, it's all in the delivery, Howard. It's like I didn't answer right away. I gave it a little moment to simmer, and then I.
Okay, let me just.
But anyway, so
let me just cross my legs and learn at your feet.
So, depending on what day of the week it is, Lawler is either upset or he likes the shirts, and sometimes he'll ask me, "Oh, I saw that," and sometimes he'll be like, "Hey, you thieving bastard, send me some of those fridge magnets with my image and some shirts, some real cool, right?" But then I hear later, I'll talk to Kevin Lawler. I'm like, "Oh, you got major heat with my dad. He saw that new shirt," and I'm like, "Oh, geez."
Oh man.
And for years, I tried to tell him, I was like, I said, why don't you do the old shirts that we all had as kids? Because now we're all grown up and we're still immature and we have money to spend. and the ones with your mug on it. And he's like, nobody wants that stuff, And then when he opened up his place on Bill, I looked at the merchandise and they were all on these like Hanes beefy tees that, are just really uncomfortable to wear. And there's like old picture of Lawler, but none with his artwork and stuff. And I left him a message. I said, "Hey, I want to do a shirt, and if it gets popular, then we'll split the profits on it or whatever." And it was like that his mug, and I think you even had this shirt back in the day, but in the Kiss font where it says King, right? And Lawler texted me, and he's like, he was not happy about it. And I said, "Okay, all right, I'll take it down. No worries." I said, "I did ask you about it though." And it's one of those deals with Lawler. Sometimes it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. And then, like 2 days later, Travis Heckel sends me a text. He goes, "Look what's up on Lawler's site on Pro Wrestling Tees," and it's that design. So it's like I stole the design, and then he stole it back. I guess.
Right. Well, I had the original version of that shirt circa 83, and I wore that shirt until my belly button was sticking out. I didn't want to give that shirt. That was my blue boy, and it was blue, and it just said King Lawler. It was the same Lawler face on there. It said King Lawler. Man, I lived in that shirt. I thought that was the coolest thing. Brought it back to Miami, and I'm thinking to myself, nobody knows who this is, but I do.
And did you feel the same way when I sent you the new one with the Kiss?
Oh, definitely. No, I love your design too. The Kiss font, the Kiss font Lawler shirt. I don't think it's still up on the KFR Memphis Wrestling Tees site, but I love it. I guess you have to get it. Okay, well, check it out then, folks.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to find over at Memphis Wrestling Tees.
You may very well find it. So check it out, folks. Memphis Wrestling Tees.
Yes, but the background art was specially done for you. So with the tagline, beautiful lies served daily, served fresh.
That's right. There's actually a tag in the back of the shirt that I thought Travis was kidding, but it's he actually used my. I refer to Lawler as the beautiful liar, and it. What's the saying on the back of the shirt on the logo?
Are you using
well, you just said I don't remember words in their proper order. I get the gist of things. You understand? So you're the one who wrote it. You're the one who wrote it. So
beautiful lies served fresh daily.
There you go. See, I would have got that wrong.
But anyway, so I go upstairs, and man, faster than Clark Kent can change into Superman, I get out of that Super King shirt. and put on Travis Heckel's. This is our bestseller over at MemphisWrestlingTees.com. I don't think I've ever plugged the site this hard before, but it's the Hanna-Barbarian All Stars, where it has all the great like Handsome Jimmy, the Fabs, Fargo, Lance, and Dave, all in Travis's unique Hanna-Barbera style. We call it Hanna-Barbarian. 2 Saturday morning favorites colliding with force, and I know that, and I feel like that would kind of lessen the blow a little bit. And I happen to have one of the Lawler shirts that where I asked permission from Mike Shields, the longtime photographer, if I could use some of his stuff, and I created this. I altered it digitally, and it looks really cool. It's the King's Army shirt. If you want to find it over at MemphisWrestlingTees.com to help support the show. And
boy, I can't wait to see the comments this week. What happened to that sellout? God Bowden. The whole show is plugs now.
Well, it's like the Saturday morning wrestling show with that same vibe, because it was pretty much a commercial for the Monday night show.
You got it. What show doesn't have plugs? Come on, it's cool T-shirts, folks. So check it out. That's all we're trying to say.
Hey, you know what? And at least I don't talk about, most wrestling podcasts, and I'm not pointing any fingers here. I'm not going to say any. You know who you are out there, but they spend the first 20 minutes of the show, just plugging stuff. And it's just like,
exactly.
Get to it, and that's one thing we typically do here at KFR. It's a Pier Sixer, right from the start. So anyway, that's just me patting myself on the back. But so I approached Lawler, and I have it, one of the nice little Memphis Wrestling poly bags that sometimes I ship the shirts in, and I say, "Hey, King," and I kind of look at him, and he's like, Scott Bowden. I feel like sometimes I'm Lawler's Newman,
Yeah.
He's like, Bowden, and I don't know how, I don't know how he's going to react. I don't know if he's upset, and he actually, shakes my hand and almost gives you like a half hug, which is about as affectionate as I think Kevin Lawler's only gotten one of those his entire life. But anyway, and we start, and I said, "Hey, I got something for you." And he goes, "Is it one of those?" And he points to Travis' shirt, and I go, no, unfortunately not. But I did bring you one." And he opens it, and he's like, "Oh, it's a fucking extra large. I need double XL." And his girlfriend Lauren turns, and she's like, "Well, I'll give it to my dad." And she's like, "By the way, where's our cut from all these shirts that you're selling?"
Oh my God!
And I said, "Look, if you want the designs, I'll be happy to send them to you. And also, I said, go to the site, pick out any shirts you want, and I'll send them to you, like I've done in the past." And Lawler goes, "Well, I don't even know where it is." And I said, MemphisWrestlingTees.com. And he goes, "Oh." And he goes, "Hey, JR." And Jim Ross, who is probably on his 5th Moscow Mule, and it's only like 1:00 in the afternoon. And he's like, He owns MemphisWrestlingTees.com. Of course, he would own MemphisWrestlingTees.com. Never mind that, I was the star and owner of the company for years. Yeah, go ahead, Scott. And I said, well, I'd be happy to send you some. And he goes, oh, thanks. I go, yeah, I'd be happy to send you these shirts that I'm using your image without permission.
Right.
And he goes, yeah, you're a hell of a
He must love the very thought of you. He must love it when he sees you coming.
Well, he was laughing though, because I would just,
No, but you go way back. Travis Scott goes way back with the King, so I guess they have their ups and downs.
And I
get one chance. I screw up once and I'm done. Travis apparently gets 1,000 chances over the years.
And I keep blowing him apparently. But and I look at his drink, and there's like a little frozen remnants there, and I go, King, you're not knocking back margaritas, are you? Obviously, because the King is a teetotaler, has never had a sip of alcohol in his life, and that is a shoot, by the way.
It's not, and I'll tell you why. But go ahead.
Okay.
Sidebar that, and I'll tell you why. But go ahead.
Consider it sidebarred. And he goes, no. I'm so messed up. I just polished off 2 virgin daiquiris. I said, boy, you really have a way to go through those virgins, don't you? And he looked at me and looked at Laura. He's like, hey, keep it down.
Oh my God.
And he's like, kayfabe.
Oh my word.
And then he walks off, and he always wraps up a conversation with me like, okay, Scott, that's about.
Wow. And see, I was waiting for you to grease the trail so I could be reintroduced to Lawler after my debacle with him at the WrestleMania party in Miami in 2012. I'd have been better off sidling up to him on my own, for God's sakes.
Well, I didn't want to risk it. I mean, it went so well. I didn't want to get all the
right. No, I was counting on the next day, but the timing was all off. I was planning on seeing Lawler the next day, and hopefully he would forget all about all of that stuff, and I could just reintroduce myself to him fresh. Take on a new identity, the version of a Memphis guy just putting on a different hood, and now I'm somebody new. Well, we'll start fresh because he's. I mean, if you get drunk in front of Jerry Lawler, you're done. That's all he needs to see. This is his least favorite thing. And I don't know how many people know this story. Are you done with
No,
are you done with that bit? No.
I was gonna
go ahead. I
was gonna parlay that into my Jim Ross story, which is
please do.
Yeah, it's brief. But so Lawler and Lauren they leave, and JR remains at the bar and orders another drink. And I'm like, when am I going to get this chance? And I know that I don't think he's a big fan of the 605.
I get that impression.
Yeah.
I heard some rumors through the wind.
But I introduced myself and I said, yeah, I used to work. And he's looking at my shirt and I think he pointed at Bobby Eaton and he goes, is that Courtney? And I go, no, that's Courtney over there with the tennis racket, the glasses.
Right.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, bless his heart.
He was stewed, man. He was stewed.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he could have just. It's hard
at
to tell.
That point, I don't know. At that point, I don't know. But at the banquet, he was stewed. There was no question about that.
Yeah. I watched that back on YouTube, the Schultz speech, and Ross's intro. Well, you almost need subtitles.
Yeah.
I mean, but hey, it was from the heart. His drunken.
And might I say, folks, put yourself in Jim Ross's shoes. One horrendous thing after another. So maybe his life consists of a little more than pleasing the old school wrestling fans and being at the top of his game. Look what has gone on with this guy.
Well,
so,
I will
between the health problems and losing his wife. Yes. Kind of a sympathetic target, and I'm not. I mean, listen, he was not the nicest guy before his wife died, and he kind of has a Fabis and a sourpuss attitude toward all the fans that I've seen over the many times I went to the CAC. But I still respect him as a professional, and I really empathize with him as a human being for everything that he's gone through. Just to have one of the things that he's gone through is bad enough. So the guy likes to drink. What would you do in his position? That's all I'm saying. Plus, most broadcasters like to drink anyway. It's a thing.
Yeah,
It's an old school thing that a thing called men used to do. We used to have a little thing called men that drank and were broadcasters.
I mean, I've got everything going for me, and I said I like to drink. So, anyway,
and humility too, foremost and first, of course.
But I'm like, hey, and we start talking, and I said I worked for Jerry in Memphis. I was, manager, and I host the Kentucky Fried Wrestling podcast. He goes, oh yeah, I know who you are. And I didn't quite know how to take that, and we got to talking, and I said, what did you? I said, I know you knew Lance Russell. What did you think of Lance? And he's like. And he got so poignant. I mean, it just question totally caught him off guard. And he's like, oh, he's just, because, there are a lot of con artists. There's a lot of carnies in this business. And I go, oh, you know my co-host, Howard? But I'm like, yeah, you were just sitting next to one, the King. No, I'm just kidding. Kidding there, King. And he goes, but Lance Russell he's probably not only, I mean, hell yes, he was one of the greatest announcers. Everybody knows that. I'm talking about as a human being, right? He's one of the best human beings I've ever met in my life. Just a good man. And I'm seriously, it's like he's tearing up. And I'm like, okay, great. JR's crying. Now I'm going to cry. And it's just going to, it's just going to be a big mess. And so I got an excuse. I was like, well, thank you. It was nice chatting with you. And I walked off. But that was, hey, anybody who puts over Lance Russell that strongly and cared that much about the man is he's okay in my book. No doubt. Yeah, I mean, he could have totally blown me off when I was there. And he actually, dude, he was wide open right there at the bar. So it appeared to me that he was, if anybody approached him, that he would be accessible, at least until maybe.
Yeah, not so much.
I don't know. Just on my mind from my personal experience. Although I will say, I thought it was rather rude. When he introduces. Kamala has the Courage Award winner at the banquet, and I guess this was a surprise deal. And it was so much, in fact, that they didn't put it on JR's format. And JR's really big on a format. Right. And he seemed kind of offended that they say, he goes, well, folks, this is a surprise. So all you people out there looking for a scoop, go call the internet. Go. I don't know how you're going to call it.
Don't call the internet.
The scoop. And he just cuts this promo, which is kind of out of place right before the Courage Award. Yeah. It seemed petty before the Courage Award. And then Scott Teal, just the perfect gentleman, gets up there and he kind of sighs a little bit and he goes, how do I follow that? And Ross... Under his breath, you can see this on YouTube. Under his breath, he's like, "You can't." Which I mean, that was a heel move, man.
Ross has gotten a little more ornery in public, I have to say, in recent years. He's been doing the CAC thing for a while, and he started out really professional, but this is kind of like shades of what got him fired. With that WWE game release that night with Flair and everything, he's like, no, I wasn't drunk, but I mean, any benefit of the doubt is out the window now because I saw it with my own two eyes. But, much respect to him. He's one of the most prepared broadcasters and he was a good call man and all that stuff. And you know what? I'm going to come out and say it. So what if you want to coast a little in life? He's been through every tragedy. Coast a little. Let Ric Flair coast a little. He's Ric Flair. Joe Namath, let him coast. Let him do mortgage commercials. He's Joe Namath.
Yeah, but
if you're good enough at something for a while, then you should be allowed to coast on it when you're older.
Well, yeah.
So I cut him a little slack. I
started coasting around episode 20.
I started coasting at around the age of 20. So.
and here we are. Here's where we are.
That's the result, folks.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So anyway, so I thought it goes well, and I post on Facebook. I go, oh, look at this! The King surprised me by flying out to Vegas for my birthday.
Right.
And I figured everyone would know that was tongue in cheek.
Right.
Some people obviously didn't. And I don't know if Lawler thought I was serious in trying to portray that. I mean, if anybody knows me, they know I'm probably full of shit. And I talked to Kevin Lawler, and he goes, "Oh boy, you got heat with my dad." I went, "What? Wait a minute. We had a good conversation. I thought everything was fine." He goes, "No.
Oh my God.
He goes, "You got heat," and boy, and trying to act like he flew out there for your birthday. And I'm like, "Oh, come on.
Man, come on." Anyone that knows you knows that would be a line.
Yeah. But anyway, so I guess as far as Lawler and I on the heat lamp scale, I guess I'm back under. I guess I got heat. Now, what about you?
You're like a little basket of French fries over there, aren't you?
I am. Or maybe like those mashed potatoes and gravy, like they squirt out of a gun, I think.
I don't go to those kind of restaurants. I'm
talking about KFC.
I don't know what kind of perverted restaurants you go to.
Which I don't know.
Squirting potatoes out of a gun.
Yes, I have no idea why I'm putting over KFC because they sent me a cease and desist order. Again, clearly, I have no respect for copyright whatsoever. Because the original KFR logo was the actual Colonel Sanders bucket with chicken scrawled out and then Rasslin,
right?
Written what appeared to be like a hillbilly, and they sent me like a 30-page, like within 2 weeks, it was like
really?
a 30-page. Yeah, well, this is when the column debuted on Kevin Smith's website, the movie director. So the site got a lot of attention when it launched because Miramax had given him a lot of promotional money, and they said you can do it, use it for whatever you want, and he used it for the website. So that was the origin of Kentucky Fried Wrestling. And actually, I think I told the story on the Jeff Jarrett interview, but the name was about a story that I was writing about TNA's debut on pay-per-view, and I called it Kentucky Fried Wrestling just because it had sort of a Southern feel to it, which you don't normally see on a national pay-per-view. And then I think Curtis Hennig passed away, and they asked me to write another. And then suddenly I had a masthead with Kentucky Fried Wrestling. And I was like, what are you going to write about next week? And it just kind of grew from there. But anyways, let's talk about, speaking of the past and heat and all that cat. You and Kevin Sullivan, now explain to the folks why there may have been some heat between you two dating back to the Florida days.
Right. Okay. Well, this is kind of a long, drawn-out story. I'll try to condense it for you fine folks. In 1984, I had a little promotion with Tyree Pride, Bobby Wells. We used to tape in Miami, run shows in Nassau. Lasted, 8 months or a year tops. A year is stretching it. But it was during 84. I was really going to college during this time, and I wasn't even really around for most of it. But my dad just got together with Tyree Pride, started doing tapings and running shows just out of the blue, very randomly and organically. Meanwhile, I'm still shooting photos on a weekly basis at the Miami Beach Convention Center, 1984, actually the end of 83. And Kevin Sullivan is booking. And I didn't see any conflict of interest there. Like, I'm running my own promotion. We're running opposition. But I didn't think of it that way. I was still half a mark when I was 18. So they found out about it after one of our tapings, and Fonzie, Bill Alfonso, and I used to be friends with him back in the day, and he was the first person I saw at the building, and I was walking from the ring to the back area, and he goes, "Oh, man, you got heat with Duke. Duke wants to see you. Duke Tanaka, Duke Kiyamoka, Miami promoter for Florida. Holy crap." I'm like, oh, God, it's all coming down. What was I thinking? So the word got back to me. I don't think I ever saw Duke, but somehow the word got to me, like, you're done. You'll never shoot wrestling photos in this town again, etc. Okay, which was dandy because I was leaving for college anyway in the middle of 84. So kind of I just got, like my old seats in the front row and shot with a telephoto lens until I left town. I don't know where I got the nerve from. I guess I went to the Dr. Mike Lano of professional wrestling photography. And that was it. I finished out my career shooting from the seats for Florida. And then I went to college and never thought about it again. Now, fast forward to 1989. It's after an NWA show where I was shooting ringside. And it was the Marriott in Miami, the Fabe Bar, as we used to call it, with my late friend Ken Chastain and all my buddies. And Gordon Solie was there, Terry Funk. It was a real who's who. Flair was there that night, I think. And I haven't seen Sullivan in like 5 years. And I go up to him, And he doesn't seem to have the happiest look on his face, but I go, hey, Kevin, you remember me from the olden days? And he goes to me, I know who you are. And I'm like, okay, and that was it. That was the whole conversation. And I'm like, well, I know he's friends with Tyrese. Why am I getting all the heat, you know? So to me, I'm thinking either two things. Like, one, he doesn't give a shit about me, and he's like, I know who you are, and I don't care, period. Or, I know who you are. You're the guy that did all that shit and ran against me when I was booking. Which our promotion was so minor. All we did was run a few shows in the Bahamas, no big whoop. But you know, I didn't know wrestling back then like I know now. That's kind of a no-no, folks. If you're gonna you don't really run opposition when, especially Sullivan was always cool to me back in the day, and I was so starstruck because he was the number one heel down there, with a bullet, and he and Mark Lewin, who I knew was an old-time legend, and he would always I would be backstage, and he would come by with Lewin and stuff, and it was weird because Sullivan would talk to me, but Lewin would stay in the gimmick the whole time. And I didn't know the first thing about Lewin. I know that my dad used to go see him at the Laurel Gardens in New Jersey back in the day. And but I didn't want to bring any of this stuff up because A, I didn't want to look like a big mark, and B, I didn't know how crazy he really was because he just came out with his eyes rolling and doing muscle poses and stuff. I didn't know what the guy's deal was. The same with Abdullah, you know? I don't know. I was half a mark back then. I never met these guys. But I'm just taking the pose. Half the time I was too nervous to even take the photo. You're trying to size it up right. If the lighting is not that great in the room, you're just trying to get it right, not knowing if they're truly a maniac like Abdullah or Lewin. But anyway, Kevin was really cool to me back then. And I remember, I think it was my second trip to Memphis, probably around '84, before we did the Gilbert Rich angle. And I knew Sullivan a little better at this point. And I said, or it might have been '83. And I said, I'm going to Memphis. You want me to say hi to anybody for you? He goes, no, all serious. And then when I came back from Memphis, I showed him my photos that I took. I had them all in an album because I used to show Kevin too, and I used to have a gimmick table too, so I used to have my photos with me. So I'd let Kevin take whatever he wanted, and I was very honored to find out that he put one of my photos that I took of him and Lewin years later, 1991, when I went to the Sportatorium on 106 North Albany in Tampa for the first time. I never went there in the heyday of Florida Championship Wrestling, but there was an independent promotion that did a little TV taping out of the same building, the Classic Florida Wrestling office, where they did the famous tapings. So in the front there is a message board behind glass where, so the people can't get into it, announcements, whatever. There was one photo in there at the world famous Florida Wrestling Sportatorium, and it was my photo of Kevin Sullivan and Mark Lewin. So I take that as a personal point of pride.
You're really thorough with this background leading up to this.
Oh, from the king of the Shakespearean rant. I'm going too long. Okay. Anyway. This is good stuff.
Note to Captain Lou. We have some editing to do there. But,
come on. Look who's talking. It was a 45-minute intro to begin with. Okay, so now for 30 years, I think I have heat with Kevin Sullivan. And so I see him I see him across the bar, and I'm like, I just got to know once and for all. So I go over there, and I go, Kevin, you remember me from the olden days? I'm Howard Baum. And I told him the story. I go, look, I told the story. I'm on the 605 podcast, and I told the story of how I was promoting with Tyree, and I didn't know if we had heat or you just didn't really care about me at all. And I came up to you, and you go, I know who you are. And he's like, no, I love Tyree. And I could see he was all open to talking to me and being cool and everything.
Yeah.
So
it's been a long time. You would think, the heat exploded. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not like anything matters anymore. So he was very cool back then, and he was very cool when I saw him at the CAC. And we talked about a whole bunch of things, different people that we had mutual friends, and just a little Florida stuff and everything. And he was very cool. And I go, look, let's do a little video. So we did a little video for the 605, where we reenacted our moment. So you can check that out.
Yep. And then before you did this though, I saw you lining this thing up, and I said, and don't forget to ask him to come on the show, because I really he's like one of those guys who I don't think he gets a lot of questions about Memphis, and I think he would love to talk about it because it'd be something new.
Get Kevin Sullivan.
I know, but you were right. You said you were going to do it. I walked up and I said, "How'd it go?" You go.
I was preoccupied with settling 30 years of unfinished business. Like, I even forgot. I mean, not used to really being the co-host. I gotta ease on into this.
All right.
But no, we'll get him. You can get him better than I can.
Yeah. Well, we got.
He probably still hates me. He was just being nice.
Yeah. What's that? Barry Rose and asked on this. I think it was on his CWF Facebook page. And I don't know. Should I ask more questions? I never. Am I engaging enough with the audience out there? I don't know. Do you want me to ask questions like hypothetical questions like? And this is Barry here asking if you could have dinner with 5 Florida stars, who would it be? And it can be from any era. From any era. I said me. No. He asked that question on his Facebook page, and people were responding.
Oh, good, because I'm. And I said, I'm slow.
And I said, Kevin Sullivan and Mark Lewin, who conjure up the ghost of King Curtis, Dusty Rhodes, and Eddie Graham while we roast a goat on a black sand beach in the Netherlands, or something like that. So anyway,
well, some of my picks would have been in that list. You want to know what my list would have been from Florida wrestlers?
No, because I think it's a kind of a silly question, but
you're the one who freaking brought it up, man.
Okay,
all right, so I'll tell you.
All right.
The Sheik, King Curtis, Morocco, Steve Kern, and Dusty.
All right, that's good. That's a good list. Yeah, I think mine has the potential to be more of a trippy experience. So, but
a trippy experience.
Well, if I have Sullivan and Lewin, and maybe they conjure.
Oh, but who do you think taught those guys? King Curtis taught both those guys.
That's true. Yeah, but
and by all accounts, he was the furthest one out there.
By the way,
or at least he had the biggest tolerance, because by all accounts, Mark Lewin is the furthest one out there. But King Curtis apparently had the biggest tolerance for all things.
But the guy was in like incredible shape. He had this incredible physique, and even if you're on the gas, man, I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Well, look at old photos of Lewin. Look at old photos of Lewin from like the 70s, and he looks like any middle-aged Jew would age. Then you look at him in 1984 when he's like 50-ish, and he had one of the greatest physiques I've ever seen. His arms, shoulders, and chest were massive, and his legs.
It's like Ron Garvin and Flair both suddenly got in the best shape of their lives when they were like pushing 39, 40.
Right.
I wonder how they did that. But at any rate, moving right along, just a couple of more comments about some people at the bologna banquet. I saw my friend, and I consider him a friend because I just enjoy talking to the guy. He's as real can get, and it gets him into trouble sometimes with his mouth. But I just think he's really cool. We've had him on the show a few times, and we typically go for like 3 hours whenever we have him on. But Rip Rogers was there, and I was hoping that he was going to be there. I didn't know for sure, and so I brought an ICW shirt. And I've sent him a few ICW shirts because in the beginning he was like, "Who's this guy?" Making these ICW shirts off the company that I helped found, and then I talked with him and I explained what I was trying to do, and I sent him some shirts, and he was happy, and so I gave it to, and I meant to send this to him at Christmas, and I had it in one of my Christmas themed "Have Yourself an Extra Crispy Christmas," and it has all the Hanna-Barbera All-Stars, which you can find on a T-shirt over at MemphisWrestlingTees.com.
Oh boy.
In a bag. And anyway, so he's like, "I'm on here," and I go, "No, but Randy is." He's like, "Oh, fuck it." And he rips it open, and I show him the shirt, and I said, "Oh, but there is some artwork with you guys with you and Lanny and Randy on the back, and One Man Gang that Travis had done in the Hanna-Barbarian style." And I said, "You're not going to sue me, are you?" And he goes, "Oh, hell, it costs money to sue you, so I won't do that." And I said, "By the way, you look great. You look like you're in incredible shape." I said, "You're really an inspiration," because I showed my wife this video. He sent me a video of him working out in his ICW shirt. And I said, "Look at this guy. He's in incredible shape, and he's ancient." and rip without missing a beat. Just so you know that I don't always get the last line in, because I just had to walk away in shame. He looked at me and he goes, 1, 2, 3. And I go, what are you doing? He goes, I'm counting your chins.
Oh, my word.
And I said, whoa. Okay, I put on a little weight. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to walk. I just walked away. I just walked away in shame.
Wow, sometimes you beat the king.
Exactly.
Sometimes you beat the king at his own game.
And I did notice that when the 605 table was announced, Brian Blair, and from the 605, we have this table over here. And Jim Ross shook his head like, ugh.
Yeah, I had heard that.
Oh, man.
That's crazy.
So our reputation.
Hey, we're on the map. We're on the map now. We're in the high grass.
But I guess the highlight had to be David Schultz's speech, which David Schultz is like this modern day twisted Mark Twain in a way, with that Southern drawl, weaving stories that hit you right between the eyes, and it's with a dark sense of humor. Some of the stories, I have no idea why he included them. And again, you can find this on YouTube. I hate to mention the douchebag's name who runs the channel, but you know who he is, the douchebag with the camera who's at every event now. But the speech itself, man, talk about a departure from the WWE Hall of Fame speeches, which just sound so scripted and so phony. They all have to be approved by Vince, and they're so filtered by the time they all have to mention the WWE universe, which none of them have ever said in their entire lives until that night. And Schultz is just, he's like, oh, there's Jerry Lawler. And, and I could just, Lawler is probably like, oh God, what is he going to say?
Right. Because, the only thing Lawler loves more than being around a drunk is being put on the spot or put in a bad public situation.
Yeah, and he goes, Lawler, remember that time that guy put a gun on you? You were like, David, he's got a gun. And I ran out and I slapped the guy, and I grabbed the gun and tossed it. And then another time a guy came after you with a baseball bat, and I got out and saved your ass again. You remember all that? Yeah, you got a good memory, don't you? You can hear Lawler kind of laughing like, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do, David.
See, I'd be curious to see Lawler in these situations.
Well, I know that when he's look, if anybody came after me with a baseball bat, I would probably be a little worried too. Or if they stuck a gun in my face, one-on-one, in a fair fight. Yeah, I mean, I think the king can handle himself. But who wouldn't be? But David Schultz is on another level of. Yeah,
no doubt.
You know what I mean? It's almost like Superman, but the bullets don't even get fired because he stops him he stops the guy from pulling the trigger with his gaze almost.
That's his power. He's a redneck superhero.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I heard he had the greatest line on, Brian interviewed him on the 605, and he had the greatest line. He was talking about his bounty hunter stuff, and he's like, I go after everybody. And he goes, why would a man be afraid of another man? That just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm afraid of everybody. He's afraid of no man? That's crazy. You kidding me? Why would a man be afraid of another man? You see how many scary people are walking around? And you're going to hunt these guys down? He's truly on another level. He's something.
And then he told a couple of bounty hunting stories, and one of them seemed kind of cool. And then the other one got that bizarre tale with, I believe every word of it, of going into like this crack house where everybody's like shooting up, and or maybe it was a heroin house, I don't know, or maybe it was an all drug house, a smorgasbord of wonderful delights. But it just sounded so like. Just people. I mean, this is rock bottom central. This is like, or it's like these people are already in the third ring, the third rung of hell, right?
Right.
And he's looking for this. He's looking for a woman who this other bounty hunter paid him $10,000 because he's terrified of this woman. To go, he's afraid to go into the house and get her. So Schultz goes in, and he pulls her out, and she's got cockroaches all over her. And he's telling the story. I'm like, people are still eating, I think, and it's just and it's so out there. You wouldn't expect that in a Hall of Fame acceptance speech. And he seems so humbled in a way and amused to be honored by his peers for I've never been called a wrestler, but that guy could go, man. When he and Condrey were in Memphis in 1980, first of all, they're doing tag team double team work that you would see later with the Midnight Express. I mean, they were really ahead of their time, and man, that Condrey was jacked up then, man. Yeah, man, and he was in great shape, and they had some great matches with Ricky and Robert Gibson, and those Schultz promos that everyone talks about, or he rips on Hogan, and it's like, yeah, he's got the big Frankenstein head and big Frankenstein feet. He was doing the same thing in Memphis. I was watching one of his old promos. He goes, "Bill Dundee, you little circus freak."
Oh my God.
And then he goes, the promoter, Jerry Jarrett, he goes, "I'll break your neck, boy." I mean, really strong stuff. I don't recall anybody going out of their way to say that they were going to break Jerry Jarrett's neck. Oh my gosh. Which is,
I'm going to have to go back and watch some of that earlier stuff. Like, there's a couple of years in there where I haven't really watched it because the quality is not that great. You can't really get good quality on certain years, but I'm going to have to immerse myself in some of that because, a lot of the classic Memphis guys, I saw them when they were a little more developed, but I have like a gap, like maybe in the late 70s where they were a little, they were a little more plain. They didn't grow into their gimmicks yet. So I definitely want to check all that out. And now I have a reason to.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
It's some great stuff. And maybe I'll even post some on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. So look out for that classic vintage Dr. D. And he also called out Steve Austin. And really Steve Austin should almost be writing royalty checks because the Austin character I think is a combination of Dutch Mantel, who Schultz put over as a great worker, but an office snitch, and Owen Schultz. I mean, Steve Austin's really his character it's the lone wolf character that Dutch would kind of do, where he would do heel type things, and you think it's almost a heel turn, but it was just he was speaking honest, and the way he looked, he even told Steve Austin, he says, if you go in there, and he goes, if you play like a lone wolf kind of character, it opens up all the potential guys you have to work with. And that served Dutch very well.
The only other person I've ever seen do that that I can think of is Piper in Georgia, when he was like in between, and Sully said, "No man is an island unto himself, except perhaps Roddy Piper," because Piper found himself. It was like in between a face turn, so he was doing like the man with no friends,
Yeah.
And so he had, for that brief period, he was like, he was still a heel, but he was just about to be a face, so he was like on his own. Well, and he's like, he did the same kind of interview, like, I ain't trying to kiss ass. I'm just me. I don't care. I fight everybody.
Well, and I tell you, I got a little, it hit me a little bit when suddenly he turned very serious. And he mentioned after, Vince McMahon put a lien on his house after the John Stossel lawsuit. And he said, I was struggling. That's how he got into bounty hunting, because he had to pay the bills,
right.
and he could, didn't want to, had a kid in high school, and after this rough exterior, but at the heart, he's a family man. Still married to the same woman, and his kid's in high. Doesn't want to take his kid out of school. He's like any other dad, and he goes, not one of you. I protected our business. Not one of you called me and said, "David, do you need anything? David, do you need any help? David, what can we do for you?" Not one of you. And the room, called out Lawler in particular, who was like 5 feet away from him. That must have felt great. I know. And he's like,
but Lawler wasn't. But Lawler wasn't even around WWE at that point.
No, he wasn't. And some of that was, and he goes, and I get it. You would have lost your job if you had called me, probably if Vince had found out. I understand that. But you would think that some of the outsiders would, especially since Schultz, had roots in Memphis, would have done something for him. But think
about it. How would Lawler know what Schultz even had going on in his life? Why would it even be his concern? I'm sure it wasn't.
Well,
and
yeah,
I mean, the other guys. Who else even has any money that they're going to help him or anything with? Plus, wrestling, you can be the best of friends when you're together, and then when you're gone, you don't see the guy for another 7 years, and you pick up where you left off. But you're not going to take up the guy's mortgage unless it's a rare case or something where you really love the guy. How many relationships in wrestling would that be feasible? That somebody, gets fired and everyone rallies around to make sure they're okay.
Well, well, I guess I'm just speaking like if it were any other industry and these were normal people.
Oh yeah, forget it. Yeah,
forget it. But I will say at least Schultz came into Memphis in '85 as part of a tag team with Randy Savage. And so, I mean, Memphis was one of the few places, I guess, where he could get booked. And I know he worked Flair. He may have worked. Did he work Flair in Baltimore for the NWA World Title match? I believe.
Yeah.
Right. But it's amazing though that he wasn't welcomed back maybe into the AWA, even though he left on bad terms with Vern, because he was so over as this feared guy who's the one who slapped John Stossel and just and he comes out on Memphis TV and he's wearing a swastika and he's going, Lawler, I checked on you. You can't even get a partner because you got AIDS, boy. And,
oh man.
And supposedly that's how Randy Savage, in part, got discovered. Jeff Walton claims that he also put in a word, but from what Vince never went out of his way to watch other people's wrestling, but Howard Finkel did and said, you've got to see these interviews with Schultz. And Vince was immediately intrigued by Randy. And then I think, and saw Jeff Walton there doing the Tux Newman gimmick. And that's how you got that ball rolling. And by like 2 months later, he was gone, but did put over Lawler. Despite Vince, it's so funny. Vince talks about the time-honored tradition of dropping the belt on your way out, all this kind of stuff that's suddenly important to him in the Montreal screw job, right? But he told Savage, "No, leave with the Southern title. Just leave. That'll be great because then when we go back to Memphis, you'll be the guy that Lawler never beat." Savage wouldn't do it because he was so grateful to Jarrett because no one wanted to touch the Poffos after the ICW deal. And he gave, without even thinking, it gave Randy a top spot, and Randy and the day after losing he dropped, I think, a loser leave town match to Lawler in Nashville and in Memphis, and then in Louisville at his last night he lost to Tojo Yamamoto clean in the middle, which is kind of ironic because Yamamoto is one of those guys that he exposed on ICW. Said Harold Watanabe, Tojo Yamamoto, you know who I'm talking to. And as a kid, I'm like shaking my head, like I have no idea what he's talking about. But anyway, they did right. And I think some people got that same feeling watching Schultz's speech. But in a way, I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was just, you could argue whether or not this guy should deserve the award. I think he was a fantastic worker. I think he got screwed big time with the Stossel deal. And I've just always loved his promos. I think he could have gotten over big as a babyface in Memphis if they had ever gone that route. And he did it in Canada, and he nearly beat Nick Bockwinkel in a great little feud there when he was hitting his peak as a babyface. And the fans were buying him as a world title contender. And it was so cool to see him, apparently pinning Bockwinkel, and they do kind of a screw job there. And he's paraded around with Vern's belt. And Vern, like David Schultz is like the antithesis of any guy who Vince would who Vern would have put the title on at the time. So it's kind of fun. It's interesting to see that.
Yeah, he's like an outlier in the business. He always did his own thing in a Brody-esque kind of way, like he operated on his own terms. Yeah. And I mean, really, do you think Dr. D in his day was the kind of guy that you're going to get all close and fuzzy with, that you're going to help him out? The guys were probably relieved when he would leave the territory. I remember Pete Letterberg. I don't know. No, I remember Pete Letterberg telling me a story where he was in Memphis. I don't know what year it was. Had to be the early 80s because it was like right before. Pete was there on this trip for longer than I was. I was on my way, but he was there. So maybe 84, 85. I think it was probably the 85 run that you're talking about. And they had like a local DJ deal, like where there's always a DJ that's going to fight Jimmy Hart or something like that. And they were doing one of those things, and it was out on TV, and the guy was like exposing the business and being a mockery. And they had to physically restrain David Schultz in that little hallway from going out into the studio and taking matters into his own hands.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm going to go out there and kick all their asses. And everyone had to like hold him back. And Pete was there for that.
Yeah. He mentions it in the promo. He goes, "I got a little comedy variety show out here because I'll beat everybody up." Because then there's somebody.
Yeah, I never saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, he goes, and the way he talks about Lawler, he's like, is that especially you, Jerry Lawler, big boy? You think you got what it takes to beat me, big boy? Which that Brian last and I've been calling each other big boy lately. Our back and forth messages. Oh my gosh. But anyway, Dr. D, one of a kind. Well, hey, Howard, speaking of one of a kind, you are one of a kind, my friend, and it was a real pleasure to finally meet you. You did not disappoint. You certainly lived up to your reputation, which I realize that's rather dubious, but
I try. I don't want to disappoint, man.
Oh man, and I look forward to talking Memphis wrestling. We've already got we already talked about some great ideas that we're going to have forthcoming. More KFR content than ever with Baum and Bowden. I even listed. See.
He's even saying my name right. You know, shit's going down now, man.
Yeah, listed your name first, but you're not. After a year, I'll consider putting your name on the bucket.
Ooh, oh my! Don't watch out when you dangle those carrots. You better be able to back that stuff up.
Anyway, we'll be right back with more Kentucky Fried Wrestling right after this.
Bye, everybody.
Before we hop into the ring for our next bout, we want to call him out here. Certainly as controversially as any wrestler that we have ever had around, and one of the toughest guys we said earlier to ever put on tights. Here he is, Dr. D, David Schultz. We haven't seen David in quite some time in this area. He's back again, and I'm sure with a purpose.
You know, the last time I was here, Lance Russell, you didn't talk to me like that. You didn't like me. Nobody liked me. Nobody liked what I stood for. I couldn't find nobody around here tough. All I could find was people wanting to sing songs, tell jokes, dance, hug each other, and all that kind of stuff going on. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to fight and show I was a man. So I went up north, baby. I went north, I went south, I went east, and I went west. And I whooped them all. I beat the biggest and the baddest that's supposed to be in the world. Hulk Hogan. Hulkamania running wild, they say. I challenged him on national TV. I will beat your butt, boy. I will take him down here, right here in front of you. He is invited to come here. And if I don't beat him, I'll never wrestle again, Lance Russell. I've been sitting back here watching the monitor. I can see that Jerry Lawler, the mouth of the South, is still running his mouth. Why don't you get some dancing bears and bring them down to the arena? And there's disc jockeys out here. They're all up there singing each other's song, talking to each other, rapping, running it down. Ain't neither one of them had a fight in their life. Don't know what a fight is. Why don't you come up to the doctor, baby? Why don't you come up to me and say it? I'll slap you down. I'll slap you down like a red-headed stepchild right to the ground. Because I'm sick and tired of it, baby. They suspended me. Told the world, said, get him out of the wrestling. We don't want him. He's too tough. He's too rough. Nobody wants to sign contracts to wrestle me. Because they're afraid I'm going to hurt somebody. I'm going to break somebody's leg. I'm going to break somebody's arm. I'm going to slap somebody's face. You know, this hand gets to itching every time I get near an announcer. I just want to slap people. But I won't slap you because I've learned not to slap old men around, you know. I'm looking at these young, tough people, and it just made me sick. I just wanted to vomit right back here a while ago watching these disc jockeys talking about what they're going to do to each other. You ain't going to do nothing but run your mouth and go out there and kiss each other on the lips or hug each other. Get down and fight, baby. Get down. Get down. Get down and fight. And I love the style of Norville Holston and the other man out here. I love their style with them belts. And there's going to be more of it. So, Lawler, I have always wanted you. Randy Savage. I've never had a chance at you either. I want a chance at anybody that wants to come up and give me a match. But I don't want no punks. I don't want no kids. I don't want no wet behind the ears babies. And I don't want no TV announcers. I don't want nobody that ain't going to give me a fight. Because, baby, I'm here to fight. And that's what I'm fixing to do now. I'm fixing to go out here and fight. Everybody told me, hey, you got a guy out here that thinks he's going to give me a fight.
Well, we're going to find out.
Well, we're going to find out. Well, you know he ain't going to give me no fight. He can't whoop me. Just like you couldn't whoop me.
I didn't say I could, David. You hop in the ring and we'll find out. Dr. D, David Schultz. Davey?
And we are back on Kentucky Fried Wrestling. And boy, I'm a little teary-eyed, much like drunken Jim Ross at the TGA Fridays bar when I mentioned Lance Russell. Just hearing or just thinking about the remarkable speech from Dr. D. It really touches my heart. What about you, Brian? Anything touching you?
Did you get a chance, Scott, to talk to Dr. D. David Schultz?
I did. I approached him. I was of course very respectful of him, and I said, "Look, I want to ask you the standard question." I'm kidding. I didn't even remotely go there. I did. I asked him a question about his Memphis days and what it was like to train there, and if he ever got frustrated to the point that he ever would confront Lawler in a physical battle and maybe expose him.
What did he say?
Go by the book, big boy. So I guess I'll have to buy the book to find out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Big boy.
And for all you big boys out there, if you're looking for the coolest wrestling t-shirts around, don't forget to visit MemphisWrestlingTees.com. And some of you have bought several shirts and you're thinking, well, I'd like to continue supporting the show, but I don't want to fork over $25 to $30, even though the shirts are probably worth double that, given the fact that they are printed on American Apparel, wrestling ring spun cotton t-shirts that are so comfy to wear. You can now pick up some smaller items, such as die-cut stickers featuring Lance Russell and Jerry Lawler, the Fabs, and much more over at MemphisWrestlingTees.com. Just want to remind you that Kentucky Fried Wrestling is a production of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. For the big boy himself, Brian Last, who's wearing no hat, I can assure you, this is Scott Bowden. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
The announcers on this program are selected and paid by parties other than this station, namely the promoters of Championship Wrestling.